everyone, it's Ron and Maria, and we're back with another edition of Ask Ron.
Happy New Year!
So our first question is from Scott in Michigan.
Okay, Scott, sorry for your crappy weather up there right now, man.
Scott asks, how would you handle your contract with a seller and buyer for the 30-day systems warranty for items like heat and AC in cold weather states like Michigan? Do
Scott,
we cover it as the investor?
It's already built into your lease purchase agreement. You look down in the maintenance section. It states that they are responsible for all of the systems for 30 days after you install your tenant buyer. Now, if you're buying a house from them, there is no warranty anyway, so it's a non-issue. Remember, when you're installing a tenant buyer, which you ought to do in Michigan, don't sell on owner financing in Michigan unless you're doing a land contract, then you better get an attorney. But if you're selling, it's in our agreement, that the lease option agreement to sell, that they are responsible for the repairs after their first 30 days in the house, which is covered by your warranty with the seller, because it starts as soon as they move in.
And next is Marco from Florida.
Marco?
I cold called a vacant house that was beat up from the hurricane a couple months ago in Florida. The owner, who is out of state, was open to selling, but he is waiting for the insurance guys. I proposed to him that I could buy his property and fix it up and he could keep the insurance money. I know investors do that all the time.
Yes.
How would that work?
That would work fine if the math works, but it's all going to depend on the math. So if he's not sure how much he's going to get yet, you can't expect him to make a decision on what he wants to sell the house for. In fact, I did that with one of our students in Baton Rouge. They'd already got the money, so they sold the house a lot cheaper than they would have before the hurricane hit and tore the house up. Got one here in Jacksonville. We almost came to terms on it. Same thing. She was selling the house cheap, but it was in bad shape, but she already got their insurance money. To be honest with you, the first thing you ought to know is that if there's a mortgage on the property, the check is usually made out to the seller and the mortgage company. So I don't know how they got the money and kept it, because all mortgage companies, all mortgages that I've ever seen, have the right to apply the entire insurance proceeds to knock down the debt. They don't have to sign the check to let them repair it. They all will, but for the seller to get all the money and the debt still be on the house, I don't even know how they're pulling it off, and maybe they're not, because maybe the house was free and clear when they got their insurance proceeds. Then it's a non-issue. So I don't know what I just said, but it sounded pretty good. All right.
Our next question is from Dennis.
Hey, Dennis.
Also in Florida.
Okay.
I have several properties in Texas, South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida.
That's probably my wife calling and telling them to bring home a loaf of bread or something. All right.
I purchased over the years via the method you don't approve of, bank loans.
Yes.
Which was how I did things before Planet Ron.
Yes.
I want to change the strategy where I offer them as lease options
Yes.
to tenant buyers. How do you recommend I proceed?
Well, I'm not sure what the question is. You know what the exit is. It's lease optioning. I'm not quite sure what it is you want me to tell you about that. If you have not been to my Quick Start School, you need to put that high on your priority list. We have them on ronlegrand.com. The schedule is all there for the whole year. So that's step one. In fact, I'm doing one in February in Raleigh. That's probably one you'd want to get to. And you will learn certainly how to exit, but also how to enter these things without going to banks. So it sounds like, just listening to your question, that you haven't had proper training, or that question would kind of already be built into your head. If you got tenants in these houses, first thing I would do is go see if they have any interest in buying, and if they do, see if they got any money down, and then you'll have to make the decision. If they have no interest in buying, maybe it's time for you to give them notice to move, so you can then put a lease option tenant buyer in each house, collecting several $1,000s down from them and letting them be responsible for the repairs. I'll tell you one thing, it'll certainly change your cash flow. Just think about it. No toilets, no crap, no calls from buyers, and you got several $1,000s of their money. They're also a totally different tenant than one that does not have the option to buy and that does not have the skin in the game. It's fun to manage tenant buyers because you don't do anything except collect their rent every month. They don't even contact you other than that. So that will change your business, just converting your tenants to tenant buyers. Okay.
All right. And our last question is from Lukman from Texas.
Hi.
I have a house that is listed for $230, negotiable.
Mm-hmm.
The seller owes $220 on it, but refuses to sell the house for what he owes on it.
Mm-hmm.
However, he agreed to lease purchase it. The ARV is $211. Is this person a suspect?
No, if he owes $220 on it and he refuses to sell it for what he owes, I assume you ask him then what is the least you could take for your equity if I took over your debt, which you can certainly do in Texas just fine. But you cannot lease purchase it in Texas, because if you do, you can't get a non-refundable deposit from your tenant buyer. They don't allow that in Texas. So your only option is to buy the house. So if he's got it a little over financed, which I doubt, I think your 211 is wrong, because I don't think you've done the correct job of figuring out what the real ARV is. And the reason I believe that is because values have gone up in the last couple of years. And so I'd have to ask, well then how did he get a $220,000 loan if his appraisal with the bank only came in at 211? I just don't believe you're 211, that's the point. I think you're probably looking at comps that aren't real comps. Maybe they were sold under distress. Go to realestateabc.com and pull up the top 2 sales with similar square footage. And those are the ones you're going to base your comps on, nothing else. So whatever they sold for per square foot, you can apply to yours, but only the top 2. Discard everything else on the list, as long as they're similar in square footage. So let's start there. Let's find out what your real ARV is, because that might help you a great deal. I'll bet your real ARV is closer to his 230 than it is to your 211. Now based on that, if he will get out of the house, he didn't tell me what the payments are, I'm assuming they're very reasonable. If he'll get out of the house and he wants a couple of $1,000s, what do you care? Because you're going to put it back on the market and get $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 on a non-refundable deposit while raising the price. I wish there was more equity in it, but that doesn't necessarily kill the deal for me.
All right, and that's it for this week.
All right, it's 2018, folks. It's time. Let's get a jump start on this year. Best way I know to do that is to come see me at the summit in February. That's February the 14th. Valentine's Day is when it starts. 4 days with a magnificent crew. A lot of things going on. Free truck, deal-a-thon, all kinds of cool stuff. Banquet, roast of the wolves, which is worth the whole trip, I can tell you right there. Go ahead and get registered for it right now. Get it on your calendar. Make a commitment to make this year start the best that you've ever had. And come to this event, and by the time you leave, you'll leave with a plan and you'll know exactly what to do. Got a lot of opportunity that will be presented there. And the price is $297 now, but I believe you still got a couple of days to get in and save a little money on that. And I can tell you right now, the hotel is already full, but we begged them to give us a few more rooms on the block, and they agreed to do it. So I don't know where we're at right now, but if you intend to stay at the hotel, which is a beautiful hotel, where we're doing this, in just north of St. Augustine, Florida, you better get registered right now, and the next thing you do is you get on the telephone with the hotel and make sure you got a place to sleep. So please come see us. You'll regret it if you don't, because you're going to be hearing a lot about it after. And when you do, make sure you bring leads, property information sheets. And if you don't know how to get them, you've never done it before, let our VAs, hire one of our VAs to get you some leads. They'll call them for you, fill out the prop sheets, you bring them to class, we'll call them, we'll do deals for you, contracts while you're there, and we'll call them live for you, with you sitting there while you hear the conversation. And then we're going to tape it and email it to you so you have it permanently. We'll set the appointment before you leave the desk. So come on, get in. There's nothing else like this, and it's a one-time only event. So get down there and get registered. If you really care about making this a good year, I can't think of a better way to start it off, which is one reason why we did it in February. I'll see you next week.